Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at onpurposely.com.
You have to sow to reap. It is a basic principle. You have to sow to reap, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a preacher, whether you're in between. And so I learned that very young in my Christian walk that, if you want to live a certain way and have certain things, and not just material, but, there's peace that comes with paying your bills.
There is nothing more powerful than a humble person with a warrior spirit who is driven by a bigger purpose. And I am so excited to introduce you, if you don't already know her, Paige Turner. We share a wonderful conversation that I want you to make it to the very end of, because she unleashes some straight up wisdom throughout the whole thing. But at the very end, it's more like a benediction over you, whatever you're wrestling through today, as you discover all of the gifts that God has given you and the way you put those talents on display to give back to the world, which is pretty much a masterclass of what Paige has been doing. And so I also want to give a disclaimer on this episode that Paige is outside. She actually still honored the commitment of our interview, even though her sister had been in the hospital having emergency surgery the night before. And so Paige said she still wanted to get some fresh air, have a conversation, and so she came outside. I think there's a lot of airplanes that pass by, but I'm sure you can push past that distraction. So let's get to it with Paige Turner.
Sarah, well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here on the Passion Meets Purpose podcast, broadcast, life-changing opportunity to hear amazing people. No, I'm just kidding. But I am outside. I'm actually at the hospital visiting my sister right now, who's well, but I haven't wanted to leave her side. So, I'm like, I have to work my purpose and my passion while I'm taking care of my little sister.
I just think it's such a beautiful representation of who you are. And I just wanted to start up front with that. And one of the questions I love to open up with is, since these gifts and talents that you are operating in right now, I know one of them was that I think someone told you talk too much. I think it was your mom, but
it was my sister.
Okay. So usually the areas that we end up operating in are in us at a very, very early age. I mean, were you out of the gate this personality?
I have always been a very loud, which I call passion, chatterbox. I always was in trouble. Back in my day in elementary school, Sarah, we had to have standards or lines. So I was always the one that had to write 100, 500, 1,000. I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. But now I get paid to talk and overshare and overtalk.
What else about your work ethic? Because you have a little hashtag that follows your whole life. Hashtag do the work. Were you that way as a child as well in school?
Always. I'm super competitive. I wasn't like this full-blown athlete, but I participated in a lot of sports. So I learned the act of, having a competitive edge very early on in track and tennis, So that's definitely part of me. But then the other part comes as an adult. Once I gave my life to the Lord, there's a scripture that says a man or woman that does not work, will not eat. So I passionately chase after my purpose in these endeavors, and the hashtag do the work to see your fruit. You have to sow to reap. It's just no matter what you believe, Sarah, no matter what you believe, it is a basic principle. You have to sow to reap, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a preacher, whether you're in between. And so I learned that very young in my Christian walk that, if you want to live a certain way and have certain things, and not just material, but, there's peace that comes with paying your bills. I've been broke before, and I was never happy. Now, one day was I happy being broke. So I think it comes from a lot of different places in my walk and my purpose path.
You were mentioning, like, we learn those lessons in the times where the squeeze is put on. And you've known times of great success. You've also known times where I think I heard you say before, you were like, Lord, I'm at my last juicebox when it came to like feeding your kids.
Yeah.
And so just take us linearly along that path, and then we'll kind of interweave some of these themes throughout the way.
Well, sure. So I grew up in Los Angeles, born and raised, and I wasn't wealthy, maybe not even rich, but we always had. I always went to private schools, We always had nice cars, nice home that I grew up in for 18 years. It's a very balanced childhood. My father died when I was 8, but my mother didn't miss a beat. Of course, we missed him, but she figured it out. And I didn't even realize that she was a single mom until I became a single mom. So then when I became a single mom, we'll just jump to there, which was after I gave my life to the Lord. That's a whole situation right there. That's when I learned the art of struggle once I had all these children without any child support. And that's where, like I say, when I was 19, I had 3 kids by the time I was 23, under the age of 2, or actually 16 months. And that's where I learned that faith is a muscle that you have to continually exercise. Faith is an adjective, it's an action word. Belief is an action word. Believing in God's word is an action word. It's action. You have to do something, And now I have this, I started way back then, actually, hashtag do the work, but also before hashtags were even a thing, but also God moves with movers. He moves with the faith seekers and the faith walkers. So I very early in my linear years, like right after I had kids, when I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have nothing in life. I had to learn to completely depend on him, even down to the last juice box. But I'll tell you this, I should say my children never, ever missed having one juice box. There's an old saying in church that says he may not come when you call him, but he's always right on time. So I might have not had juice boxes on Monday, but boy, when I got to the last one on Friday, I had a way to replenish them.
That was when you decided to move across the country as well, because you talked about how, well, I'll let you say it, but you were not feeling peace where you were, and those girls were your priority, and you had a good job at the time, but you were not settled in your soul, and so you packed up. You drove across the country with those girls. Your friends didn't even throw you a goodbye party. They didn't think you were actually going to go.
And it's not because they didn't love me. They didn't believe me. Because at the time, Nashville wasn't a thing. Moving to the South wasn't a thing. When you're LA born and raised, Sarah, you are LA all day. Like you're poor, you're rich, you're in between, you're just LA. And I realized that, well, one, I was not going to have or be able to give them a life that I had or better at that time. And I was working for Magic Johnson, like you mentioned. I had a good job. But LA is LA. It's feast or famine. You either take LA or LA will take you by storm, right? And looking back, it was probably a lot of fear, but I didn't have any peace. Like, how am I going to raise them at least how I was raised or better? Private schools. Like, I could afford to put one in private school, but the other two, well, what's going to happen to the twins? And I didn't have any peace. And I said, I have to go. I really felt like I was dying physically, like, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. I had to get out of LA. And I happened to go to Nashville for work. And I went through this back when I ate McDonald's. I went through the drive-through and the lady said, now y'all come back. And I said, come back to McDonald's? Me? LA, the thing about LA, New York, I'm very polite. My mother raised me very well. But you have on blinders in LA. You don't acknowledge other human beings that you don't know, I should say. And I had never experienced people looking at you in their eyes, saying hello when you walk by. I was like, hi, this is weird. I don't know you, And I fell in love. That was in April of 2000. And I was working with Magic Johnson. We went to go scout for some, he was building movie theaters in urban areas. So we were scouting. April of 2000, I did a PowerPoint presentation to Jesus. Me and him in my living room, in my apartment, 2 bedrooms in Reseda, California, that cost $1,400 in the year 2000. It was astronomical for my 3 kids and I. No child support, none, 0 zilch. And at that point, I was like, I don't even want child support. I just want a babysitter. I just need a break. In fact, I'll pay you to watch them. And they were good kids, but they were 3, and there were 3 stair steps, all walking, crawling, moving at the same time. So, and not independent at the same time. They're super dependent on me. So that was in April of 2000. I pulled up in that U-Haul you mentioned, Sarah, with my 3 babies. It was a U-Haul that had the back seat. I had my Jeep Cherokee in tow with my little 2-bedroom apartment in the U-Haul with a map. And I drove by faith. into a house I had never seen before because we didn't have digital cameras. We didn't have Facebook. So I had met, let me just throw this insertion in real quick. I had gone to church while I was in Nashville with two great people named Craig and Diane Miner. Great church experience. We fell in love with each other. All three of us were like, oh my God. And they were like, if you ever need anything. So I called them as soon as I landed back home in LA. And I said, I can't afford to come back. I don't even know what living in Nashville means. I didn't even know there were really other states to live in. I didn't know how other people lived. I just thought people, if you struggle, you either struggle or you don't in LA. That's all I knew. And they said, well, listen, we will find somebody. We'll find somebody to rent you a house or an apartment. If you trust God in us, if you trust God in us, and we will find a safe place for you and your family to live. And they did. They went back to church. One of their members was renting a house. He gave me the address. I had to look it up on a map. Old school paper map, and I packed up and I said, well, how much is it? He said, it's $750. I said, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I said, a week? And he said, no, a month. And I was like, I don't understand. I don't get it. And so I said, well, how do I send you the money? I think we had MoneyGram back then or something. We didn't have Venmo or Cash App. And so he said, no. I can leave the keys under the mat. I'll get the money one day next, when you get here. I was like, what? So I drove out there to a house I'd never seen with keys under the mat, hadn't even met the landlord. And that was in July of 2000, 3 months later. And I didn't come home for 16 years.
And so many conversations I'm sure you and Jesus had, especially during that cross-country drive.
I was like, what am I doing by myself doing this? This is insane. Of course, I'm going to say this up. I almost said, I'm sure there was doubt, but I don't remember having any doubt. I remember chasing peace. And I knew that my peace was in Nashville. I didn't know anything else. Now, the fear and doubt might have came in. I didn't have a job. I had very little savings, but I was like $750 a month. I mean, I can do anything and make $750 a month. So there's fear there, but very little. I knew I was going for peace. And that's exactly what I had for 16 years. And then I woke up one day, my last kid graduated from college, and I said, my work here is done. I gave Nashville a TV show. I'm a top realtor. Nashville raised me as, if I could say, the greatest woman I know how to be, as an adult. And I said, now it's time to go back home.
Let's talk about how the realtor part began, because I know, was it at that same church that through networking, you got a job? I think it was as it wasn't a loan officer. It was a loan officer gave you a job.
Yes. So the same couple, the same church introduced me to Dwayne Jackson. I'm still good friends with all these people. And he was a loan officer, and I didn't really understand what any of that meant. Now, my immediate boss when I worked for Magic Johnson Enterprises, Ken Lombard, he had said to me, he'd be really good at being a realtor. And I was 20, 25, 26. Nobody I knew in my age group owned a home, so I didn't even know what that meant. But I did go to some classes through Century 21 in Beverly Hills, which is where our office was. And I didn't finish because I jumped up and I said, bye, Mr. Johnson. Bye, Mr. Lombard. I'm going to Nashville. Everybody thought I had lost my mind. I left. So when I was introduced to Dwayne, he was like, I'm a loan officer and I need an assistant. And I said, which is a processor. And I said, okay, I don't know what that means, but I can do just about anything. So I did that. And he said, you'd be a great realtor. I said, my old boss told me that. So that was in 2002. Went to the classes, took the test, and I got my license in 2003. And that's it.
I love that sometimes that's another thing that the whole reason I wanted to do this podcast with so many people is sometimes others can see a gifting in us that we can't see in ourselves yet. And 2 different people said you would make a great realtor. Now knowing all that you know about that, what did they see in you? Why were they saying that about you?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'll say this. I remember very clearly, there's an area in LA called Hancock Park. Beautiful old homes built in the early 1920s, huge mansions. My mom and I used to drive through and I would pick out different houses. Oh, I would paint it this color, that color. I remember this so vividly. So somebody had deposited something, it might have just been a natural gift, back from when I was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, 9, 10 years old. I just remember I went to school in Hancock Park. So I remember seeing all these homes. Now, fast forward, to answer your question, I think they probably saw in me a couple of different gifts that I know I possess now, that I really work on to hone in myself. Gift of service. because, at the end of the day, you're providing a service for somebody to fulfill their dreams. And sometimes the first in their whole lineage being a homeowner. I mean, that's very humbling that somebody would take me on that journey to make one of the biggest purchases their family's ever made or probably will ever make in their life. They definitely saw the bossy side of me, the in charge executive side. Remember, I used to tell Magic, I can't believe the things I used to say. I can run my own business. I can't always work for you. I used to say that to him. Can you imagine that? And here I am. I think they saw what I brought to the table. I'm organized. I'm a go-getter. I don't meet a stranger.
Yeah, you're a connector of people.
I am a connector of people. Thank you. I love connecting people. Even if I'm not, I don't even want to be part of it. My manager always says, now hold on, Paige. How can you be part of this? I was like, I don't want to be part of it. I just want these two people need to meet. This is part of their purpose plan, not mine. So I am that. So I think they saw those traits and gifts.
So you started doing that. I think I heard that your first sale might have been like a trailer and you didn't even realize that it was the land. The land doesn't come with it?
It was this trailer. His name was Howard. He had a little beat up trailer. I saw some bugs in there and I was so mortified, like roaches. And I was like, okay, it's okay. I'm going to just handle this like a boss. And I went in, did the listing papers, then found out that you don't even own the land. I was like, so you're just renting the box? I was like, oh my gosh, this is another world. But it was my first sale. It was $20,000. So 3% of that's what I made. And I was very, very proud of that sale. And Howard, he trusted me to sell his trailer.
Right? That first sale. And then, obviously you just, as you do, you keep building on that skill set. And, then you opened your own brokerage after a couple of years. And I want to fast forward us to probably one of my favorite stories of yours, because I think we can all relate, or at least those of us that trust God's Holy Spirit to give us discernment. It's great when we ask for something and he gives us the answer we're looking for and we're like, let's go. But sometimes that voice comes in when we don't necessarily want to hear it. And you were at one of the heights of your success and you went out and you bought yourself a nice, shiny, champagne color showroom floor Escalade, as you do when you're killing it in real estate. And you heard what inside of your heart?
It was inside of my heart, my head, outside my heart, my head. As clear as I'm talking to you, Sarah, the Lord said, not now, not yet. And I said, well, here's the deal, God. I have good credit. I have money in the bank. I have more money coming. I have a pipeline out of this world. I know people who aren't even Christian, who are wealthy and rich. They don't even need you because you really don't need God to have good credit. You don't need God to make a lot of money or even to be a billionaire. You need him for peace and to get to heaven, but you don't need him to get the stuff of the world. So I kind of said, with all due respect, sir, I'll take it from here. And he said, go on and take it. Go on and take, and it had peanut butter interior, brand new. Go on and take that brand new $80-something thousand Escalade off the showroom floor if you want to. And I said, well, I want to. And I rolled on out with it.
And this was 2005, right?
2007.
2007. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. 2006.
Okay.
The new body style came out.
And the reason that Paige and I are discussing that is because if you bought a house or did anything around that time, you know very quickly what happened about 6 months later, which was a word that you were so unfamiliar with that you had to go to the library to figure out what it was. And that word is recession.
Recession. I was like, receding, like a receding hairline? What is a recession?
And we're in one? How does that affect me?
I was like, I had almost 50 agents, and then I had 5, like overnight. Like my agents were paying the overhead for my brokerage as they're supposed to. And then that 1 month, I was like, why do I have to write it out of my own personal account? And I was like, Mommy, what does this mean? Because we didn't have Google. If we did, it wasn't in our phones. It wasn't a quick read. I don't remember when Google came out, but my mother and I, we both went to the library. And I was like, what? Should I go to the post office and get a job? Like, what do I do? I don't know what to do, literally. And then fast forward back to the Escalade. The recession hit, full-blown recession. it got to a point where it was my Escalade or my house, amongst other bills. But the two biggest, most expensive assets in my life, which the car wasn't an asset, but it was my biggest bill, and my house where I was raising my three babies. So I called the Cadillac financing company. I was like, look, here's the deal. I live on a cul-de-sac. Beautiful neighbors. We don't need to let them know that I'm not going to pay this note anymore. I don't know what just happened to my life, but come on and take this truck back. Now, here's the deal. Yes, Sarah, God told me it's not time. And 6 months later, this recession went full blown and my money dried up. Because, realtors make good money. And when you're a top realtor, you make a lot of money. And I was disobedient with money. I was disrespectful to money. I just spent a lot because I knew I had so much coming in my pipeline. And then it went dry and I didn't have any savings. What's crazy about that story is not that I had to give back this beautiful $80,000 champagne color Escalade, whose name was Stella, by the way. I had a paid off Eddie Bauer edition Expedition because I always wanted two cars, like one that was paid off and then one that I could drive. Because I always found that as a single mom, I always knew other single moms just needed help. I'm like, here, I have a second car, go use it to, whatever you need to do. So I always wanted a second car. So that was one of the dreams I had. But when you're seeing, Nashville was a small city at the time. So when you're seeing driving around, everybody knows that Paige Turner, Vegan Real Estate, just got this beautiful Escalade. But then she's seen driving her nice, not beautiful, but nice, 4 or 5 year old Expedition. Even though it was Eddie Bauer edition, all leather inside, it was beautiful, but it was not an Escalade. It was very humbling. I mean, I would park at the back of everywhere because I was embarrassed. And the Lord said to me, Paige, if you trust me, I will give you so much more than an Escalade. You're talking about peace, because it wasn't the Escalade. It was what the Escalade cost for my peace that he knew was coming, of why I didn't need it. Because now I'm stressed. Now I have to file bankruptcy. I have to be embarrassed in front of my cul-de-sac neighbors. Like, where's your truck? I mean, what I say? I'm lying. I'm like, I don't know. It disappeared. So it got caught in the rapture. I don't know. So he was telling me no, to just to wait on him. Because when you wait on him, but WEIGHT, he'll take that burden from you. And instead, I took a burden on that I didn't need to take on. So it wasn't the car, it was the weight that he knew was coming.
I've heard you rewind that a little bit where you almost imagined what would it have been like to not take that Escalade home the first day. They let you take it overnight to make sure you really want it. Yeah, all that does is seal the deal. But if you had have said, like, I'm going to wait 24 or 48 hours or whatever, gone home, talk to the Lord more about what you were hearing, you've speculated what you felt like his loving voice would say.
Well, he knew the recession was coming. We didn't. He knew the recession was coming. So it's like, Paige, just slow down. Slow down. And I didn't. I went full throttle instead. I was like, no. It's like, listen, that's one side of the twofold. Because he knows what's coming. We don't always know. I don't operate in the gift of prophecy. So I didn't know. I didn't even know what the word meant. The other side of that is you have to learn to temper yourself, meaning control your temper. Temper doesn't always mean bad. It means impulsive. It means not listening, being disobedient to God's word and his spirit and his voice. Because I might be prophetic in gifting, but I definitely hear him and his leading. And not now, not now. But it cost me a lot worldly wise. But the gift I was given, I will never forget that feeling of being disobedient when I hear his voice so clearly. And now what you just said, and I tell you, before you make any big decision, wait 24 to 48 hours anyway to get the emotional side of it. To get over that side. But now I really lean into that. And not because I lost an Escalade. Forget the Escalade. I mean, those things come and go and they get old in 2 years. It's more about that leading and the guiding, which is such a blessing because what it really means is that you still hear from God. And that's number one, a miracle. And that's the true peace of God. And that's what I was missing out on. Or I skipped it. But I willingly said, no, I'm good. I'm good, God. Who says that? Oh my God. To be so full of myself. Never again. So
Well,
now this big platform on HGTV, and I'm like, I will always be humble because that little bit of something I had with that Escalade, something happened in here that was very worldly. I'll never forget that feeling of being in jeopardy of providing a home for my babies.
mhm.
That could have been taken away.
The house, though, in God's grace, you got to keep because you had a friend that you called up, and unbeknownst to you, I think even that moment, she was like a specialist when it comes to foreclosures.
Yeah, at the time it was called foreclosure short sales. Well, I knew I wasn't paying my note. And even as a realtor, I just didn't know I was out of time. I was playing Russian roulette with the allotted time that the particular bank allowed before foreclosure notices started going out. I was playing with fire, but that was now not on purpose. It was because I was disobedient with the car, and I had credit cards, and I had just too much, so much debt. And I would rob Peter to pay Paul with this house note now because the money wasn't flowing like it was 3 to 6 months ago. So now I'm just behind on everything. And the house was on its way to be up for foreclosure block. And I was also not reading my mail because I already knew it was inside. I didn't want to deal with it, didn't want to face it, which is crazy because we don't want to face, let's say, bills when those are things that God can help with too. But you have to do the work and open up the envelope to see what you're dealing with, and I didn't. I just acted like it was just going to go away. And that house almost went away. And basically, when I opened up the letter and it said, you are in foreclosure, your house is going, in Tennessee, they go to the, we call it the stairs to sell the house to investors before they put it on the market as a foreclosure. And I was paralyzed. I was like, my house, my babies, what are we going to do? And so Leneva helped me through that. First of all, we prayed so much. She prayed so much. She covered me. She prayed for me. She prayed strength in me because this is what I would do. I would help other people. And now I couldn't even help myself. And she was on the phone with me when we called the bank. And she was able to negotiate with the bank, meaning we need more time. We can send this much money right now, because I couldn't even think straight. And she got me through that. Leneva Head. I'll always love her for that. And she got me out of foreclosure. And I said, I will never, ever rob Peter to pay Paul with my house note again. And I have never been late. And that was in 2008.
I don't remember where you saw the thing about HGTV and a show or whatever, but the cool thing about it that I liked was what they were asking for. You didn't fit the bill for what they were looking for. And right. But then you went to bed and you woke up at 1 a.m. and you decided to rewrite because you knew better than they did what they actually wanted.
You know what? Faith gives you a boldness that some people might say, oh, she's this or that. I'm like, no, I'm just bold in the Lord. So I was looking I saw an email. I'm part of a realtor association. Everybody's part of an association. And it was an email saying that the network was looking for a new married couple that fit their formula. The husband, formula at the time, the husband is a contractor, the wife is a designer, a realtor. And I went to bed like, anywhere in the country. I was like, I've got to know somebody. This is such a great opportunity. Connector, right? I'm trying to just figure out. And I didn't know anybody. Went to bed, 1:00 in the morning. And I still I know we have notes in our phones, but I keep a pen and paper on my bedstand to this day. And I woke up, I went, that's not what they're looking for. I was like, Lord, what is it? He said, they're looking for exes, you and your ex-boyfriend, who I was still a realtor and designer. And he was football player turned contractor. That's how we met. He was flipping his first home. And I pulled his pictures off the internet because he used to play football. I wrote up a bio for him. I already had a bio. I'm an agent, so I had my headshot and all that. Put it together, and I called it Flipping Exes. And I wrote the whole show out, 1:00 in the morning. And I sent the email. I went, and I was so scared to send it. I just went, go, 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 go. And I did it. It was a production company. I thought it was a network. It was a production company. They called me the next day. Are you guys real? We want to get on Skype with you because we didn't have Zoom. So long story short, that Skype turned into a sizzle in 2 weeks, turned into a pilot in 30 days because they turned the sizzle into the network. The network said, let's give them a pilot, just one episode. So we filmed it, we aired it, and they were like, it did great. We want to give you a series. But there was also a spin to that, Sarah. So it was called Flipping Exes. They changed the name to Joined at the Flip, which I thought was so cute, so much cuter. But then I got a call from the network that said, we love you and Duran, but we want to put you in a franchise called Flip or Flop. And at first it's like a dagger because Flipping Exes, Joined at the Flip, that's my baby. So I said to the head lady who called me, can you hold on? Because I had to check my spirit. I said, can you give me 30 seconds? She said, sure. And I said, God, what does this mean? What does this mean? Okay, this means prime time immediately. My show could have gone on a Saturdays at noon. I didn't know what slot we were going to fall in. Immediate franchise. I don't have to sit and beg people to watch my show because it's going to be everywhere, in marketing and commercials. I was like, Flip or Flop had been on for 5 or 6 years, the original one in Orange County, California. So this is good. So I came back. I said, Audrey, I'm so excited. Thank you for this opportunity. This is great. She said, Paige, do you know you're the only one? I have to call 5 other shows. You're the only talent that responded respectfully, understands this opportunity. And she said, and because of that, your career will be long in this business. And I went, oh. And here we are, 6 years later, on my second show, but I've been on 8 different HGTV shows. And it's because of that discernment. Hold on, God, before I get full of myself, like I was at the Cadillac dealership. Like, what do you mean? This is my show. I created this show. It's not Flip or Flop. It's Joined at the Flip. I had to hear from him in 30 seconds. I said, speak to me, God. Speak to me. Literally, I was like, speak to me, God. Please speak to me. He was like, peace.
Yeah.
I said, this is a good thing. And I just saw a checklist in my head of all the reasons I listed and why this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And here we are.
That 30 seconds with him can save us years of pain.
Years. And bankruptcy, and near foreclosure, and car repossession.
I love that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that phone on mute and do 30 seconds to check my spirit, and making those decisions out of a place of peace and not fear or not ego. Like, I think we make decisions out of all different places, but peace is the only one to make those from.
Yeah. So true. It's so true.
In our final minutes, your journey has seen plenty. It's seen want. The Lord has been at your side through all of it. For someone that is listening to all of these episodes, just knowing that God put something very unique inside of them and is calling them to something beautiful, that he's at their side, and maybe they're in one of those places where they are one juice box away. What would you say to them in this moment right now about what God has planned for them?
Wow, Sarah, that gave me chills. I would say that above all, he wants us to be healthy and prosper. And what does that mean? To be healthy and to prosper. When you're facing decisions, circumstances of fear, of doubt, of usually things we put on our own, shoulders that make us heavy and weighted down. I would say that his word is true. And if you don't believe it, and don't believe me, then try it. Because his word cannot return unto him void. So a little bit that's been absent from our conversation is how much his word matters to me and how it's directed. The whole armor of God. The peace of God. It's all scripture. And even when you don't have the emotion, doesn't take it. We think that God has to be emotional. We have to be emotional. Sometimes you have to just read it and say, that's it, God, your turn. So give him his shot. Give him his turn so that you don't have to get your cars repossessed like me. So I would tell people to give him a shot. Call him on his word and let him handle it, because he will when you let him.
Thanks so much for being here today on the Passion Meets Purpose podcast. We're going to talk again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, if you want to do us a huge favor, obviously you know this by now, if you leave a review, it really helps others to find this podcast. It also helps us to make it better. And then you can contact us anytime at Purposely Podcasts. Until next time, thank you.